There is no problem with masculinity in society today. There is a problem with some of its definitions of it. Of course, almost all the men were raised by women, and almost all of the women who raised problematic sons had one trait in common. The boy was complimented on his accomplishments and the girls on their looks. He was told he could be a doctor. They were told they could be nurses. He was told to study engineering. They were told to be hairdressers. He made messes. They cleaned them. They cooked. He ate. That wasn't the fathers doing that. It was almost always the moms. Dad might have supported that idea, but mom went for it. Dads in those traditional households don't tend to take the largest part in raising the children. The problem with masculinity in society today is that it was demonized, abolished, and abandoned, and the tiny shreds that remain, so tiny that they cannot be properly classified as masculinity, are constantly under attack. I was not alive to see it, but deep down I know that, at some point, there existed a sort of generational chain that tied each generation to those that came before it. Men would bestow as much of their life experiences to their sons and be good examples of manhood to their daughters. The sons would learn that being a man wasn't always about throwing a punch, but rather about responsibility, integrity, courage, the pride of a good day's work, etc. It was easier to have pride in who you were, the family you lived in, and the nation you lived in, because your father and the other men in your family and community acted as physical links to the past. You learned their lessons along with your own, passing them on to your children, and so on and so forth. And then somewhere along the way, a group of people decided that men and their values were no longer required. Fathers were stripped of their families in no-fault divorces, and men, in general, were stripped of all honor and decency. With them went society. Now, those of us who remain, the fatherless children in the millennial generation, are ridiculed and shamed, both for having toxic masculinity, and yet also for not being masculine enough. We have no work ethic, you see. All we care about is our smartphones, our tablets, our video games, our memes, etc. We're all losers who still live with their parents into their 20 and 30 seconds. We're a bitter disappointment to previous generations, even though they're the ones who helped to take our fathers away and left us with nothing, with our only role models being fictional characters on a screen. Indiana Jones, Han Solo, John McClane, Luke Skywalker, etc. Those men were our fathers. There is no one else. But we do try to help you. The elders say, you just don't listen. Well, quite frankly, you tend to start tuning people out when everyone has a different idea of whom you're supposed to be as a man, as if they have the slightest idea of what that means. In the end, it feels less like they're trying to help us, and more like they're trying to indoctrinate us and recruit us for whatever cause or agenda they've got going on. And if I have to hear one more person tell me to be a man, or what I would apparently do if I were a real man, I'm pretty sure someone's gonna get flattened. Masculinity in the true sense of the word died a long time ago. And now we have to take on the roles of the fathers we never knew and teach ourselves how to be men. As you might imagine, this endeavor can yield mixed results. The problem with the old masculinity is that it was destroyed. The problem with the new masculinity is that we're largely attempting to rebuild it from nothing. And you hate us for it every step of the way. Here are some masculine traits. Physical, whether competing for food, fighting hand to hand, or challenging each other in the sporting arena. Mastery of one's own physical abilities is an important part of being a man. The most primitive, yet still one of the most prominent traits. A man's physical capability affects everything from self-preservation to mating preferences. The health and virility of a male make him an appealing candidate for partnership with the opposite sex, while his strength and stature still prove to be influential factors in both the social and business world. Functional. Throughout time, a man's ability and desire to provide for those that depend on him has been central to his masculinity. While utilizing a combination of physical ability, wit, savvy, and ambition to succeed, his role as the breadwinner is what drives a man to achieve. No matter the geographic location or social situation, men work primarily to feed and create an environment of comfort for their wives and family. This is the commonly accepted role of the man within the social system and proves a formidable challenge that every man must accept. Sexual. When it comes to partnership, the man is perceived to be the less affected of the genders. Traditionally, it has been more acceptable for a man to remain a bachelor later in life compared to a woman. The desire for independence and freedom from the command of others is typically a masculine trait. A man's role as the aggressor in finding a mate is frequently recognized in most cultures, leaving him to seek out and pursue his interest. Although this sounds like an archaic and primeval practice, it is still a very large part of the courting process in modern society. In fact, this image of man's independence has become so accepted, and even glorified in mainstream culture, that married men often feel compelled to follow this independence still. So, before marrying, ensure that you recognize the challenges that will come your way no matter what, and that you both have a firm commitment to make it last. Emotional. The denial of one's emotions is ingrained in men from a very early age. The phrase "boys don't cry" sums it up. Whatever his position, a man must manage without regard to the emotional effect that issues have on him. The ability to suppress personal feelings enables men to maintain an objective view of the circumstance and carry on. A man is then able to make rational decisions, whether in a situation as small as an interpersonal debate or as catastrophic as a bloody battlefield. That said, it is necessary and healthy for men to have someone that they can confide in. A mentor, a brother, a friend, and let the old guard down once in a while so that stress isn't bottled up to the point of exploding. Intellectual. Men are seen to rely on their intellectual capabilities rather than on emotion or intuition. The utilization of reason and logic enables men to view situations objectively and thus respond to them in a rational way. Only factual information is considered, while feelings are deemed unsuitable evidence on which to base decisions. Education and the acquisition of knowledge are viewed as important factors in male development. Interpersonal. In interpersonal relationships, men are prone to adopt leadership roles and take the initiative to act on the other's behalf. This can manifest itself negatively in the form of dominant behavior, by suppressing the will of others in the name of self-interest. However, this leadership can also be utilitarian. It is highly effective in the family model, as the father is able to establish order in the household. Giving direction and acting as a disciplinarian are common functions of men as a result. Among some of the other characteristics commonly attributed to men are ambition, pride, honor, competitiveness, and a sense of adventure. These are not necessarily the attributes possessed by the perfect man. Rather, they are displayed to varying degrees, in one way or another, in most all men. They may reveal themselves differently from man to man, as one may use his power and influence for selfish interests, while another will strive for the greater good. Each man must assess his own strengths and weaknesses and find the best use for his vital characteristic.